Hey guys, welcome back to another flashlight review. Today we're going to be looking at the Sofirn SK1. And since the release of this round diode SFT25R, it seems like many of these flashlight companies are getting on board, creating their own updated pocket thrower, especially when you look at a few of them that used to have those SFT40s in there. This one does offer some extended throw, slightly less lumens depending on the bin, but this one here by Sofirn is rated at 1300 lumens and a beam distance of 479 meters, though I did measure over half a kilometer on my version, which is no small feat for a pocketable flashlight like this. It's a perfect size for me, really just slip into my jeans pocket. And it's designed with this rotary switch on the back. So it's like a magnetic rotary switch and also a dual stage button on the back. So you can see half press for turbo, full press for strobe. If you're on the tack mode, on the duty mode, you can access a few lower modes as well, which is really handy for some of you who want to use this light for other purposes. I think this is a great sort of versatile flashlight for everyday tasks as well as emergency self-defense kind of situations. So let's have a look at what's included in the box. So obviously you get the light itself. Now Sofirn include a battery. It's an 18650 Sofirn cell. Okay, so 3000 milliamp hour cell. This is the box that the SK1 comes in, and you can pause the video, have a look at the specifications there if you want. But the great thing about Sofirn is that they just include pretty much everything you need in the box. You know, this is great for beginners, especially those of you who don't want to be fussing around figuring out what additional accessories that you need to get with the light. So you get a lanyard, a couple of spare O-rings. You also get a USB-C charging cable. Here's a little side-by-side comparison of my Sofirn SK1 next to the S8, the Convoy S8, as well as the Workhorse FC12, and you can see right away that the head is a little bit larger in terms of diameter. So if we put them right next to each other, you can see there, and that is what contributes essentially to the additional range compared to those other two flashlights. So yeah, unfortunately there's no other way really unless you have an LEP flashlight, but I think the head is still pretty reasonable to carry around in your pocket, and yeah, I prefer having that extra range. Alrighty, here is a little close-up of the Sofirn SK1, and it's constructed from 6061 aluminium alloy. It's got a hard anodized finish, and it feels a little bit slippery along the head and areas where there's no knurling, but on the battery tube you've got some chunky knurling here, which is great. It does help with grip when you're holding it this way. And yeah, it's operated by this rotary switch that I mentioned before. There's 3 pivot points, and you do need to apply a little bit of, a little bit of pressure. Okay, so it doesn't just sort of slink around, and it's not going to accidentally turn into some other mode, just by moving it around, that kind of thing. It's also got this 2-stage tail switch, like I mentioned before. The 18650 cell can only be installed by unscrewing the head, and it provides excellent runtime, especially on moonlight mode, so you can run that for up to 200 hours. Underneath here we've got this port cover and USB-C charging, which is great. You've also got a battery indicator here on the other side. Okay, just underneath the top part of the head, you can see it glows green, also lights up when you're charging. Here's a little close-up underneath the bezel of the flashlight. So you've got the SFT25R, and this version comes in 6000 to 6500K, which is pretty standard for these throwy, bright LEDs. And yeah, I think it's the perfect LED these days for long-range performance, because you still get a ton of spill, but it adds extra throw when compared to the SFT40. And you've got a smooth reflector in here, glass lens on the front, also a nice stainless steel bezel. It's crenulated, and the glass lens is recessed in there, which helps to protect it. But yeah, this crenulated bezel might come in handy if you need to break a window. Okay, so I'm going to go through the UI, and the first thing I'll do is just put it onto the tack mode. Okay, so it's pretty simple. There's only 2 modes: half press for turbo, full press for strobe. Okay, you can't alter that in any way, can't reprogram it. In the lock mode, when you press, you get access to the moonlight mode. In the duty mode, if you half press, you get access to the moonlight mode. And then if you continue to half press, you get low, medium, high, and then turbo. One thing I like about the SK1 compared to the Workhorse TD07 that I reviewed recently is that in the TD07, you have to half press the button on duty mode in order to access any of the modes. Whereas here you can just full press the button and then half press to switch modes. I think that's a much more intuitive UI. So I ran a bunch of ceiling bounce tests with the Sofirn SK1, and this is on turbo. You can see here the light starts out on 100%. By the 2-minute mark, it steps down and you get around 45 to 50% output. Ran the test for about 16 minutes and you can see it's just holding around that mark. Here's a second ceiling bounce test on high, and this was quite interesting because I saw almost the opposite pattern. You start off on 100%, but then the light actually increased in brightness just after the 2-minute mark and after the 6-minute mark. And you can see after the 6-minute mark, it slowly starts to come down past the 16-minute mark. Here are some tests that I ran with my Opal Light Master Pro, and you can see here on the turbo mode, I got an impressive 568 meters of throw. And on the high mode, I got 397, which is still pretty impressive. And you can see as well, the CRI range from 63 to 68, so there's no surprises there, and CCT was between 5,500 and 6,200. So there's a few considerations to keep in mind if you're thinking of getting the Sofirn SK1, and the first consideration is unregulated output. So that means the light's going to produce more heat than regulated drivers, and over time it's going to experience voltage sag, where basically the output is going to slowly decrease. Now, for this price point, it's still a fantastic deal, and at least I'm happy that the initial step down from turbo isn't huge. The second consideration is the rotary switch. Okay, it's an awesome idea, but I wish there was a physical lock, some kind of latch on the tactile mode so that it doesn't move around accidentally when in use, and it doesn't feel like I would, accidentally switch it to another mode, but you never know in a panic, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that could really be improved in their next model, but it's not a deal breaker. The third consideration is the focus beam. So it's not going to be ideal for some of you guys that might want a broader sort of floodlight for short, medium range work. But yeah, if you're watching my channel, you're probably interested in these long range flashlights anyway. Overall, the Sofirn SK1 is an excellent deal if you're looking for an entry-level tactical style flashlight. And it's got everything included in the box, which is what I really like about Sofirn. And you've got that 500-meter range as well, which is so impressive for a little light like this. I like this rotary switch as well that has one-step access in the tack mode to turbo and strobe. Thought that was pretty impressive. And I also like that there's some lower modes. It makes it practical for other situations as well. I think it'd make a great long-range pocketable flashlight for enthusiasts and also a nice gift. So if you're interested in getting one, go ahead and check the link down in the video description. I've got a special discount voucher there for the SK1. If you have questions, just let me know down below as well. Probably missed out on a few things here and there. And if you want to see more flashlight reviews, keep up to date with the latest flashlight news, make sure you subscribe. The Sofirn SK1, and this is on the highest mode, turbo mode. Holy cow. Perfectly circular beam reaching right to the end of that golf course very easily. Now I can cycle through the other modes as well. That's the low, medium and high mode. That high mode is still reaching all the way to the back with ease, but that turbo mode is really impressive. I have a few other flashlights, well, a couple other flashlights. I've got a Convoy S8 with the same LED, that's SFT25R on the right. And you can see, even with the SK1, running for a bit of time already, it's still outperforming the Convoy on the highest mode. Of course, you've got a larger reflector in the SK1 to the left, so still very impressive. Let's have a look at it next to my Convoy S8 with the SFT40. That's the SK1 and that's the SFT40 to the right. So you get a much more concentrated beam with the SK1. Just trying to focus at that tree right in the center of the field. And that's the S8 with the SFT40. SK1. SFT40 with the S8. And that's the SFT25R with the S8 again. So yeah, overall you do get a much cleaner looking beam. You've got a larger reflector, obviously. I'll go for a bit of a walk and you'll be able to see the beam profile. Sofirn SK1. This is on turbo. Incredibly good throw for a light of this size. I mean, there's so much spill as well. Let's go through. That's even high. You know, high mode is easily reaching all the way back to those trees. Strange, there's a little light in those trees somewhere, but yeah. Sofirn SK1, nice little city skyline shot, and what you see there is basically the path around this lake right at the end with those trees, and it's doing pretty well. I mean, given that there's a lot of ambient lights here as well, you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff in the water, seaweed and things as well. It's doing quite well, getting right to the end. Sofirn SK1. It's amazing how it goes into the water as well. You pick up some seaweed and stuff under the water. Here in the foreground you can just see it illuminate. And that's the path just all the way around this lake. So you've got all those trees and a nice little path, which the SK1 is just able to illuminate, given that there's a ton of ambient light here. I think this is such a nice little scene. I have to come back here again, but again, this is a, you know, like a long range sort of beam shot location. And just across the road here
well. There's some cars. I just want to try not to illuminate them, but you can see those trees, it's like palm trees or whatever. The SK1 is managing to hit so easily. Here's another one. That guy doesn't need headlights.